Hello, I am Joseph Delaney. In 2004, I gave up my job as a teacher and I became a full-time writer. I write about ghosts, gas boggarts, witches, and mostly about the spook and his apprentice, Tom Ward. They fight the dark. During the last 15 years, I've been really busy writing lots of books. Here are a few of them. And now for a bit more detail. A spook's apprentice is a seventh son of a seventh son. That means he's got some immunity against witches and he can talk to the dead. But is he brave? The spook takes him to a haunted house to be tested. A midnight lad go down to the cellar and face what's lurking there. The ones who pass the test become spook's apprentices. This is the French version of the book. There are more readers of spook's books in France than in anywhere else in the world. I like France. I am Joseph Delaney, and one of my favourite characters is Grimalkin, the witch assassin. Here she is, about to take the thumb bones of her enemy. An enemy witch. She wears the bones on a necklace around her neck. And here is the book, I Am Grimalkin, one of my favourites. The spook's battle takes place right at the top of Pendle Hill, where the witches are trying to raise the devil himself. There he is. And there he is in close-up. Spooks. Creatures from the dark are listed in the pages of a book. So who will keep the county safe? Well, the same person who wrote the book. His name is John Gregory, and here it is, the Spook's Bestiary, full of creatures from the dark. And here's the spook himself. He's not a magician. It's a craft. It's a trade. He has a silver chain. He uses a rowan staff. He fights the dark. And he's the county that he protects. You'll recognise some of the places. The Black Pool, Pendle. So, what kind of creatures from the dark does the spook fight? This is a Pendle witch. But what kind of a witch is she? Is she a blood witch? That is not water that she's drinking from the bowl. Or is she a bone witch who'll snip away your thumb bones and wear them around her neck? And this is a feral Lamia witch who once looked like an ordinary human female, but she's a slow shapeshifter, and she'll jump on you. She'll crunch your bones and drink your blood. Here is an abhuman whose father was the fiend. His mother was a witch. He's got too many teeth to fit into his mouth. His name is Tusk. And here is his brother Fred. That's a joke. This creature is called a skelt. It hides in a crevice near water. When it hears you coming, it rushes out, jumps on you, and instead of teeth, it has a bone tube which it sticks into your chest and drinks your blood. That's what the spook must fight. And this is Siskoy, the powerful vampire god that Tom Ward meets in the book The Spook's Blood. This is my latest book in the spook stories, Brother Wolf. Brother Wolf is a young monk who's sent to work with Spook Johnson, who is a witch specialist. But he overreaches himself and he's captured by a witch. Brother Wolf goes north to seek help for the one place he might get it. He goes to Chippenden. This is when Wolf reaches Chippenden in search of Tom Ward. Thunder crashed and devil lightning forked above me as I trudged up the achingly steep hill towards Chippenden village. Grey clouds cloaked the tops of the fells, and I knew that rain would soon follow the warning sounds of the thunderstorm. It would be dark in less than an hour too, and I dreaded to think what that would mean for me, a lone traveller in the county. I shivered and I picked up my pace. When I finally reached the village's cobbled streets, I swiftly entered the first shop I saw. Two large pigs' heads were positioned at each end of a long, blood-stained wooden counter, like bookends. But this was certainly no library. Rather than leather-bound tomes, between the heads was a long row of pork chops. A big man stood behind the counter, eyeing me suspiciously. It seemed they didn't welcome strangers here. But never mind that, I told myself. I was on a mission. Excuse me, sir, I asked the butcher. Could you tell me where to find the local spook? Mr. Ward. The man stared at me for a long time while wiping his hands on his apron. And what would someone of your calling be wanting with a spook boy? He asked, looking me up and down. I knew it must have appeared somewhat strange. I was a novitiate, a monk in my first year of training, and my clothing made it that plain for all to see. My habit consisted of a black tunic tied at the waist with a leather belt and fitted with a hood. Additionally, I wore an overshirt that indicated my lowly position. Priests don't usually have dealings with spooks. We don't hold with their methods, the way in which they confront the dark, without the use of prayer and meditation. And think it's an unholy business. For that reason, most won't even allow a dead spook to be buried on holy ground. So I could understand why my question might seem peculiar. I'm here on behalf of someone who needs his help very badly, I replied. Help? Against the dark? The butcher asked, resting his elbows on the blood-stained counter. I nodded, not wishing to go into detail. For 2 days I've been hurrying to Chippenden as fast as I could, and I couldn't waste time on questions like this. I needed to find this spook as soon as possible. You mean to say you couldn't sort out the problem with prayer? Well, that does surprise me, the butcher said, his voice full of sarcasm. What's causing the trouble? A boggart? No, sir. It's a witch, I explained, trying to stay calm and confront my impatience. The butcher laughed out loud at that, though I couldn't say anything funny about it. Witches were powerful, dangerous, and all too real, as I discovered recently. However, the man finally led me outside and pointed up the deserted street. There's a lane leads north out of the village towards a big house standing amid some trees. That's where the spook lives. But don't go up the path if you value your life. It's guarded by a savage boggart that will rip you to pieces as soon as you enter the garden. Instead, take the narrow road to the northeast. It'll bring you to a crossroads beneath a stand of willow trees. You'll find a bell hanging there. Ring it, and the spook will come out to you. That's assuming he's not away on business, and if he is, you might have a very long wait indeed. I listened carefully, but I wasn't sure that the butcher had his facts right. I knew that boggarts were dangerous. Spooks hunted them down and killed them. So why would one guard a spook's house and garden? It seemed very unlikely. Thanks for your help, I said, dubiously, and I set off up the street, glad to be away at last. Then after a few seconds, I heard a shout, and I turned back. Hey! The butcher yelled, and I saw him grinning. Do witches scare you, boy? I nodded. It was the truth. Well, be prepared to be scared some more. There's something you should know about our local spook. He lives with a witch. Thank you. Wolf faces many dangers in the county, and one is from boggarts. This is a stone jugger boggart. I've already written the next book in the series. It's called Wolf's Bane, and it'll be out in May. This is another of my books called Ghost Prison. A boy is sent to work there as a trainee guard, and he encounters one of the ghosts, the most scary ghost of all. She's on the cover. Her name is Long Neck Nettie, because she's been hanged. She's the ghost of a witch, and her neck has been stretched by the rope. I got one of my ideas for the book from Mick Ross, the guard at Lancaster Castle. I used to go there and talk to prisoners there. Mick got out his big bunch of keys and said, "Come with me, Joseph. I'm going to show you something that's right up your street." And he took me to a doorway. "Down those steps," he said, is the dungeon where they kept the real Lancashire witches when the trial in 1612. Imagine the witches have gone, said Mick, but there's something terrible lives there now. Something kept captive that hardly anybody can dare face. So I went away and I wrote the story, and I imagined there was something even more terrible than the ghost of Long Neck Nettie, something that was kept down in the dungeon and had to be fed with a bucket of blood at midnight. We got an illustrator to do the drawings, and this is his rough sketch of the creature that's kept down in the depths of the dungeon. The next book I'm going to talk about is nothing at all to do with the spook stories, but it is set in the same place in Lancashire. What is an aberration? An aberration is a monster. So imagine a zone of monsters which is slowly expanding, and at the heart of it is the town, the city, now called Preston. But how did it all start? Imagine a cobbled street, a warm summer's morning, people getting up for work. But one house at the end of the street is different. It's freezing cold. You can see ice on the windows. And a young couple live there. A young couple with a pet dog. And they don't get up. There's no sign of them appearing at all. So people knock at the door. They knock, but there's no response. And eventually they have to break down the door. When they go inside, they find the young couple dead. There's no doubt that they're dead at all. One glance tells you that they are as dead as you can be, because they've been reduced to skeletons. All the flesh melted from the bones. Then they hear the puppy barking in the kitchen, so they open the door to let it out. It's no longer a puppy. It's big. It's got large fangs. It runs at them. They step aside and it runs out of the house. But that night it starts to haunt the town. You see its red eyes glowing in the dark, and when it runs towards you, you have no chance. It attacks, but it only ever takes one bite from its prey. You may live, you may die, and they call it one bite. And one bite is the very first of the aberrations. In this scene, Crafty is trapped in a cellar and something is about to join him. Crafty held his breath and kept perfectly still. Perhaps the thing that was emerging from the earth wouldn't notice him. He knew exactly what was happening. During the past week, the cellar had come under attack several times. The worst occurring just after the second candle had gone out. It had begun with a thumping and a banging in the rooms above. It had sounded like something big, striding back and forth, bumping massive shoulders into doors and walls and trying to destroy the house. That had distracted Crafty from the main attack. While he was gazing fearful at the ceiling, something had risen into the cellar through the floor. Long, thin, bony fingers had twisted upwards through the soft earth in search of prey. Those fingers had been green, covered with brown, warts, and tipped with razor-sharp nails that were encrusted with dried blood. Crafty had leapt back in alarm, as if sensing the movement, those threatening fingers had lurched further upward, revealing the hand almost as far as the wrist. But in doing so, the fingers had passed out of the shadow cast by the table to be bathed in the yellow light of the final candle. The warts had burst like boils lanced with a hot needle. The skin had sizzled and burned, and from deep under the earth had come a scream, followed by a groan of anguish. The hand had been withdrawn, and the danger had passed, much to Crafty's relief. But now there was no magical candlelight to repulse the threat. Swallowed by complete darkness, he now heard squishing, slithering, sucking sounds as something began to free itself from the soft clinging earth. He could smell the loam. He turned, horrified to see a brown glow emerging as a head came pushing up through the soil like a mushroom. Thank you. This is the second book of the series. It's called The Witch's Warning. But that's not the witch. That's the white lady who comes out to the zone to terrorize children. This is the witch who gives the warning to Crafty. If you want to find out more about my books, the best place is probably www.josephdelaneyauthor.com, my website. You can also find me on Instagram, where we put up a new picture or a new video or whatever each week, and also Facebook. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them on a live Zoom event. But if that's not possible, I'll answer, film that, and send that to you as soon as possible. I hope that you enjoyed the film.